Welcome to the Dark Match Podcast. Here's your host, Matt Barger and Pat Carney. You're not going to get me sick, are you?
Not unless you can catch allergies.
Well, you never know, especially with the weather that's in this city and in this state. So you couldn't move at all yesterday.
Dude, I had a horrible headache, and I'm sure it's sleep deprivation and children and...
Oh, yeah, they... children, number one.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just walking, talking, just viruses galore. You don't think your weekend had anything to do with it?
Oh, I'm sure that did. I mean, I fared better than others at the wedding that I attended, leaving on stretchers. But
What?
I didn't tell you about that?
No.
Yeah, I was at a wedding at a Museum of Art. Location will not be disclosed. And the band, they had a band. And they were like, all right, this is our last song. And like halfway through the song, it just ended all abruptly and the lights came on. So I started getting my stuff. And I'm like, all right. And then I see one of the girls getting wheeled out on a stretcher. And I'm like, holy smokes. And she fell. I don't know how.
Did you try getting her number?
No.
I'm just kidding.
The only number she was worried about at that point was 911.
Very true, very true. I actually went to a wedding this weekend too, but so it was a beautiful wedding. I mean, it's not as exciting as yours ending in a 911 phone call, but at least no one got electrocuted at mine.
My food was good. How was your food at yours?
It was actually really good. Right. I had to bring some home too.
It was in a vendor box or anything?
Oh, it was in a vendor box.
Good.
Yeah, they gave me like it was a New York strip steak with some scallops and some asparagus and like some red tomatoes. I mean, I'm sure no one really cares about that, but it was. If you haven't had it, I would definitely recommend it. It was one of the best take-home foods I've had. So
free food is important stuff to us people on the radio.
Exactly.
I mean, the first rule of being in the radio is never turn down free food.
Yeah. The expression of there's no such thing as a free lunch, it's false. Just go to a wedding and there's plenty of leftover food. But
and
I
cake.
mean,
Always cake.
Always cake. So, but we're here with episode 2. I mean, I didn't think we were going to survive episode 1. But we're here with episode 2, and we got a pretty exciting show today.
I'm pumped.
I am too.
I was pumped just to do the first show, and I'm just as pumped, if not more pumped, for our guest today, and just to be doing our second show.
I don't think I can wait any longer. Do you think you can wait any longer?
No, I think we need a drum roll. Ready?
Okay. Ready? I wonder if everyone's still there.
Are you ready?
Don't ever do that again.
Come on, I wanted to be Triple H for a minute.
Yeah, you're not Triple H, but...
I just spit water out all over the hallway outside of the studio.
Because it went down the wrong pipe and you almost choked to death.
Okay, maybe I was just trying to be cool.
Okay, whatever it was, but they made you clean it up, so it's not as cool. Our guest on the podcast here today is Simon Gotch.
Simon frickin' Gotch.
Well, I don't even know what to call him. Do we call him Simon Gotch?
Simon Grimm.
Ryan Drago.
Guy with amazing mustache.
I mean, there's plenty of guys like that, though.
Just not myself.
Exactly. Or do we call him Psycho Seth? Do we go back to the days of his start in independent wrestling? We don't know, but I can't wait any longer. I think there's only one thing left to do. Let's get this interview started. Here's our exclusive interview, the Dark Match Podcast, Episode 2 with Simon Gotch. All right, so what's going on, man?
Oh, not much. Just doing a phone interview. I believe you should be aware of that because you are on the other end of it.
So it's kind of funny. We were talking before the interview. Would you like us to call you Simon Gotch, or are you going by Simon Grimm, Ryan Drago, Psycho Seth, or do you have a new name that you want to introduce us to?
Really, whatever you want to call me is fine. I have no real feelings towards it at this point in my career. There was a time I was very sensitive about the Psycho Seth thing because I hated that name. But yeah, no, whatever you want to call me, Seth's fine. Drago, Gotch, Simon. It's all pretty well good.
Oh, okay. What are you going by now?
Well, I technically own the name Simon Gotch. I have purchased the trademark on that, but I was using Simon Grimm immediately after my release because I wasn't aware. They actually still held the copyright, I think, for 3 or 4 months. Or I'm sorry, the trademark. Someone actually got really upset that I said copyright instead of trademark. So I have to be careful about that. It's the internet, where if you breathe, you've somehow offended someone. But I was using the name Simon Grimm initially upon my release because it was actually a name I had pitched and they had turned down, and I was like, okay, well, let me use this name now because I liked it in the first place. But since I've been working with MLW, I've been using the name Simon Gotch again.
How did you find out that the trademark had been released?
I actually did an interview and someone brought it up. They said they'd actually done the search on it and they'd abandoned the copyright, so I picked it up.
Definitely crazy how that happens. This guy just goes online one day, looks up copyrights, finds out that yours has been dropped. I mean, when I go online, I'm just reading sports news. I mean, everything kind of happens for a reason, though.
Yeah, I was unaware of it, and he was like, "Yeah, they abandoned the copyright a few months back," and I was like, "Oh, okay." And I looked into it, and he was right. And sure enough, I just went, "Okay, well, I mean, $240 to buy the copyright. I'm sorry, the trademark. Let's get that clear. It's a trademark."
Yeah, we'll edit it out if you say it again. No worries there.
Oh, just bleep it. Make it sound. Let's make it sound as dirty as I felt when I was told that I used the wrong term. Let's bleep it.
We'll definitely we'll have an entire interview of you and I just talking, and then I'll have an interview where I'm just gonna bleep out just random words and phrases to make you sound more dark than you actually are as well.
They used to do that with that was a big thing on YouTube for a while, where they'd edit cartoons that weren't actually filthy.
Oh,
they'd
yeah.
just bleep words to make it sound way worse.
So, and I've seen them do it with multitudes of different things, like presidential debates, and the list goes on and on of other things that they're kind of bleeping out. But kind of getting back into it, now you've been in the industry for quite some time. When did you kind of start?
August of 2001, so it'll be 17 years this summer.
How did you kind of get your start? Attend wrestling school? I know that's kind of been a topic previously. Did you?
That was that simple. I'd seen the documentary Beyond the Mat, and they mentioned that there's a wrestling school in Hayward, which was, at the time, I didn't know exactly where Hayward was, but I knew it was in the Bay Area. I went on the Google Maps. I'm sorry, I think it was still MapQuest back then was the one you used. But it was 86 miles each way, and I decided I wanted to be. I signed up, and I would drive. I do that drive. I did that drive 3 to 5 times a week. I think for 3 or 4 years.
86 miles each way.
Well, that was back when gas was still, $1.50 a gallon.
Exactly. So
it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, not too bad, but I mean, over 170 miles trek just for wrestling school, and not many people would do that. When did you first get exposed to the world of professional wrestling? Oh,
I started I started watching wrestling when I was 3 years old.
Everyone's like an early bloomer.
I didn't. I actually didn't decide I wanted to be a wrestler until I was 18 or 17. I'm sorry, but it was just because I never considered it as a potential job. When I decided that it was something I could do for a living, or that I wanted to do for a living, rather, it was about another year and a half before I actually started training. Well, actually, about 11 months. I'm sorry, it was about 11 because it was July 16th was when I decided I want to be a wrestler. So August of the following year. So yeah, it was about 13 months. I'm sorry. But I was a big fan of Mick Foley, and I'd read his book, and he talked about driving whatever it was 800 miles round trip to Pittsburgh to train with Dominic Benucci. So 86 miles each way seemed kind of reasonable to me.
Absolutely. Now you had some very unique trainers as well. You trained under Mike Modest, and then Harley Race as well, correct?
Also Daniel Bryan in there, but that one gets sort of forgotten sometimes.
Oh wow. You know what? I did see that, but unfortunately, I only saw it on a couple different sites, so I didn't know the legitimacy of it or not. Didn't really want to mention it if it wasn't true. But kind of getting off topic here, obviously he just made his return at WrestleMania. Did you have an opportunity to watch that match?
I did not. I was actually I was at WrestleCon, and I flew home Sunday morning. So I was face deep in a delicious plate of Korean barbecue by the time WrestleMania started, and 7 hours is a lot to ask of anyone for anything, even if it's something you love.
Absolutely.
So I did not get a chance. I went back and watched some of the matches I was interested in, Asuka and Charlotte, Shinsuke and AJ, like the ones that I really liked or that I was interested in seeing. I went back and watched like a week or two later. I found out that my WWE network account actually still active, my employee account.
Oh.
Or I'm sorry, my independent contract. Yeah. Which I don't think has any sort of deep meaning. It's just it probably would cost them way more money to track down my actual account number and close out the account than it does to just leave it open, because obviously as I'm not going to buy a network subscription, so it's not like they're losing money by me having it. but it would cost them probably at least a little bit of money to follow through and find out what my account number is and close the account.
It seems a little tedious, yeah.
Yeah. So it's that sort of thing where it's like, I think they just go, he worked here. What does it matter?
Yeah, let him watch as much content as he wants. So after leaving wrestling school, you went to APW where you fought under the name, I believe that's when you went by Ryan Drago.
Technically, that's where I was known as Psycho Set, and I was not a fan of it. I became Ryan Drago when I went to Pro Wrestling Iron, which was Mike and Donovan Morgan's company. I think that was, March 2003. So Brian had left APW in August of 2002 when he started with the Inoki Dojo down in Los Angeles. So I stuck around at APW for maybe another 6 months after that, but I was really dissatisfied with how I was being treated there. And Roland Alexander attempted to work me for extra payments, so I walked out of the school.
So you start with APW after switching wrestling schools, bounced around to a few different promotions, but in that time you did gain the watchful eye of WWE. You had some great training, great trainers as well, had years of experience under your belt. But how did your first match with FCW go? Did you tear the house down, or did you kind of stink the place up?
The first one I had was with Joey Cabray. What was his name? Luther Ward. He's actually the promoter for OTT Wrestling in Ireland now. It was not good. It was basically, I was thrown in there at the last minute because Ozzy Cherry, who was a wrestler from England, he had gotten, it was some weird thing where like he was supposed to do the match and then they were going to pull him because he was hurt, and then he was going to do the match and then they pulled him because he didn't want to let them work his leg because that was what the injury was. It was some weird thing. And at the last minute they threw me out there with Joe, and the most notable thing about it was at the time German suplexes were banned in FCW in the building. Oh, it was actually already NXT, but it was in the FCW building because they're still using it at the time as a venue. And Joe shoot Germaned me. You can actually see it on camera. I don't help him at all. I don't jump. He literally he's strong as hell. Joe just straight Germaned me on my head. And it was one of those moments where you're like, where I guess Bill DeMott lost his mind when he saw it. He's like, what the is that kid doing? Like, I didn't do nothing, man. He Germaned me. What do you want me to say? I assure you, if I could have stopped him, I would have.
And I'm sure you kind of heard like every single bone in your body kind of crack at that point the second you hit the mat.
I think it's my main marketable skill.
So when you first got to NXT, you weren't really traveling around the world like they are these days, were you?
Oh, no. When we first got there, they weren't even doing Carolina. They did nothing out of state. The very first thing we did out of state was the loop for the Arnold Classic in 2014. It was 2014 or 2015. Might have been 2015, actually.
No, it's 2015 because I was actually at the Arnold Classic when it was down. I actually went down there for that. So, and I thought they did that the year before. They
might have, but it would have been then 20. They did something outside of the state. Oh, yeah, because was that right before WrestleMania?
Yeah, it was right before WrestleMania.
Okay, and I think because it was 20. And then we did the Arnold. And then we had one other show in Cleveland, I think that weekend.
I think Cleveland was the first house show ever, actually.
Yeah, you know what? I actually saw that on the 24 special. Cleveland was the first ever NXT house show that they ever had.
Yeah, it was at the Agora Ballroom.
Yeah.
It was like we had one in Columbus, one in Cleveland, then we had the Arnold. And yeah, that was the first time we actually went out of state. And from what I was told, they stopped even doing the trips down to Miami because they used to do those at one point. They would do the fair show down in Miami back when it was still FCW.
So you guys were just kind of traveling all over the state. Who did you kind of find yourself jumping into a car with and kind of making these treks with?
Usually it was mostly the shooters and Sammy Callahan. So it would be like me, Callahan, Sawyer Fulton, Travis Tyler, Angelo Dawkins, Cal Jack, Clayton. Then towards the end when I was in NXT, it was Oni Lorcan, Biff Busick, Sawyer, and Swan. Those were the normal guys I'd ride with.
I truly believe that Oni is one of the most underutilized talents on the entire NXT roster. He might be underutilized, but he does have two things going for him beyond the fact he's a phenomenal talent. Absolutely.
They will never fire him.
Why is that?
He's a Kowalski guy.
Oh, yeah, that explains a lot.
A lot of people don't notice that, but if you take a look, Triple H does a very good job of taking care of Kowalski guys.
Yeah.
Biff is one of them. Tommaso's another one. Even a lot of people, I think, sort of crooked their head a little bit when they brought Matt Bloom in to be the head trainer for the PC. But again, he was a Kowalski guy, so he has that sort of mindset that Triple H likes because he has the similar experience, which is just sort of how if you look at how he governs, it's kind of like guys like that are who he's really a fan of. No, it's not to weigh anything from those guys either. It's not like a knock on them, but because they're absolutely talented and have earned their positions.
Yeah, that's definitely not a knock at all.
It's just they have that little bit extra, like, oh, hey, you're a Kowalski guy too? Cool, yeah, you know what?
Yeah, I knew Tommaso Ciampa was a Kowalski guy, but I didn't know that Oni was too.
Oh, yeah, because Chaotic basically was born out of shall we say, the ashes of Kowalski's school. So a lot of the guys that came through Chaotic were actually technically Kowalski guys.
What kind of experiences did you have with Dusty while you were with him at the Performance Center? Do you have any interesting stories you could tell us?
Pretty much standard stuff. I mean, you'd ask him his opinion on your promo. He liked some of the stranger stuff I did. I did a few silent promos where these were basically just silent movies. I did one where me and Chad Gable were basically just doing stuff in the background while Becky Lynch and her name's Erica Hammond. She was Veronica Lane, I think. We're talking about a banoffee pie recipe, and like me and Gable are running through the background fighting each other. And then there was one, Charlotte Flair, Ashley, had done a promo, a very emotional, very like earnest promo talking about her brother Reed. It was a tearjerker. It pulled on the heartstrings, and it was a very depressing kind of promo to hear. And I got up there one night following her, and people were like, "Oh, there's Gotch. She's going to do something funny." And I had this really weird promo that I planned out where I made a mask. It's not like the one I have now, but it was just a mask I made. And I rigged it up to where there's a bulb where the mouth was full of fake blood. And when I bit down on it, it sprayed out of the eye. Oh, my God! So you could hear, her name's Sarah, but she's actually Bo Dallas's wife now. You can hear her on like the audio of the promo scream because she has like eye phobias. So when the blood starts spraying out of the eye, she screamed and freaked out. And it was one of those moments where people were just like they were like, "Oh, he's going to do something funny and entertaining." And I just went so dark. Just the darkest, most disturbing, like contorting my body and screaming till I almost threw up. And like
Carrie moment.
And the bleeding. Like it was just like I would equate it with it looked like something out of Saw was what someone described.
Oh, jeez. You went from the expectation of George Carlin and like a performance art piece to Jigsaw and messing with everyone's eye phobias.
Yeah, it was definitely not what anyone expected. And again, that was what I like to do with promos is I like to play with people's expectations. I like to come up with different stuff. It was probably one of the more frustrating things being in WWE was that it's kind of they want you to do the same thing every time. And I don't like doing that. I like to feel like I have to think. I like to actually have to use my brain and really apply myself to getting stuff to work. And it's hard to do that when you're doing A, B, and C. You have exactly this amount of time, and you have to say exactly this. Otherwise, we're done. That's just not very. It's not very emotionally fulfilling for me because I don't feel like I'm actually working. I feel like at that point you could really put anyone out there and do that job. And if you don't need me, then I don't want to be there.
Definitely. If you're not happy with what you're doing, you're not happy with the direction that they're providing you with, then you should go find your happiness and find your love for professional wrestling. And we'll be back with more with Simon Gotch here in just a few moments. He'll discuss his departure with WWE, how he told several people on the WWE and NXT roster that he wasn't happy at all. But before we do that, we need to have a little time with our sponsors, show them a little love as well. So, Matt, you're a huge sports fan, right?
Huge.
You're constantly listening to Sports Talk Radio, going online, checking the latest rumors, just getting up-to-date information on the world of sports and entertainment, correct?
Always. That's the only way that I can keep up with what's going on.
Yeah, you're talking with your friends. They're talking about a story you don't know anything about, and you're left in the dark, and you sound like an idiot trying to keep up, just making up stories. But is there anything worse than trying to get your sports and entertainment coverage, and more than half of the pages you're clicking on are just ads? They're sending you to spam sites. You try to click the X and accidentally hit another ad. instead, you wind up in the bane of the internet, just going from troll to troll, site to site with no end in sight. That stops now with that'smy216.com. No spam ads, no clickbait, just the content that you're looking for and you love. That'smy216.com has the latest on the Cleveland Browns, Cleveland Cavaliers, Cleveland Indians, and yes, the latest in the world of sports and entertainment and pro wrestling all across the world. You're not going to be upset. I mean, you're going to leave saying that's how the internet should be in the sports world. They're changing the game on how we talk about the game. That's my216.com. Once again, that's my216.com, the exclusive sponsor of the Dark Match podcast. You actually made waves with your departure. You actually made comments to several individuals while you were in NXT and also in WWE that you no longer wanted to be there. Tell us a little bit about those situations and how it came about.
So I was talking to Biff, and I told him this was a few days before WrestleMania in San Francisco. In Texas, I'm sorry. It was a few days before WrestleMania in Texas. It was like maybe the day before, and I saw him right after the NXT live special that we weren't on, and I just looked at him and I went, I effing hate this place, I want to quit. And then it was within 12 hours, I was told I was getting called up. And then a year later, it's WrestleMania in Orlando, and I see Corey Graves in the hotel elevator, and he asked me how I'm doing. And I just looked at him, I said the exact same thing. I said, I effing hate this place, and I want to quit. I've never wrestled because I was trying to be a celebrity or get rich or anything like that. Wrestling was always something I did because I was passionate about the art of wrestling, because I enjoyed doing it, because I enjoyed having to think and create and work in this very unique environment. Professional wrestling as an art form you can compare it to a lot of things, but it is completely different than anything else on the planet.
Absolutely.
To the point where if you want to describe it, there's no way to describe professional wrestling better than saying it's professional wrestling.
Absolutely.
It's one of my favorite quotes from American Dad, where Stan is holding a heaven gun to God's head, and God makes a point about him, about his unwillingness to listen. He says, you're literally holding a gun to God's head. I can't think of a metaphor for this action that is better than what's actually happening right now.
I remember that episode very
That's a great
vividly.
episode.
I love that episode.
They say what you will about that show. They always had the best Christmas episodes. But
Agreed.
Moreover to the point, it was just a lot of people, again, they look at wrestling as a springboard to do something else, or they really want to work for WWE and that's it, and that's their only goal in the industry. That was never the end all be all for me. So being emotionally unfulfilled, it was difficult for me to want to be there. And if I don't want to be somewhere, I'm not going to be there.
What kind of challenges did you experience when you went from WWE back to the Indies?
Really, the biggest challenge was just that there was a lot of misconceptions about me during my time in WWE. And again, going to the Indies, there were a lot of promoters that I think were very skittish about the idea of using me because they believed the unsubstantiated and never sourced reports from dirt sheets. Then they would actually, the guys who wound up working with me all were genuinely shocked or surprised that anyone ever had a bad thing to say about me. I was joking around the other day because I did a seminar up in Buffalo for Empire State Wrestling, and everyone who did the seminar was extremely happy with it. They all learned a lot. They enjoyed it greatly, and I posted about it to some friends, and I think the exact thing I wrote on it was like, "Hi, I'm the most unprofessional jerk in all of professional wrestling. Take a look what this guy who had to train with me said." And it was just pointing out that for all the negative things that were said about me, and a lot of the stories that were, again, and not even a lot of the stories, this is the weirdest part about it. A lot of this precept about me comes from three places. Number one was Enzo injuring himself in our match at Payback. Because Steve Austin said that was my fault. Because as we all know, Steve Austin was in the ring and is a physicist and knows exactly what happened. Then thing number two was Sin Cara and I, when he threw the Coke can at me, the version of the story that was told by Dave Meltzer was that he knocked me out with one punch because and that I was universally disliked in the back, which again was based on nothing and wholly inaccurate. He threw a Coke can at me. He never punched me. And then the last thing was basically Ryback, that fall said a lot of, or just basically repeated a lot of that stuff. And again, people cited him as a source when it's like, well, he's repeating what he's read in dirt sheets. And moreover, I hate to be the one to say it because he was perfectly nice last time I saw him, but Ryback more than once has had it pointed out that he's not always the most forthright or accurate person in his reporting. It's actually become kind of a meme where whenever Ryback says something, people respond with like, Ryback invented friendship. Ryback invented the concept of driving, because Ryback would claim that, he invented so-and-so's gimmick, or, they stole that from him. Or I think that was kind of why I made the point about my WWE Network account, was because I guess he claimed that WWE left his account open because he thinks they wanted to miss WWE and miss working there. It's like, nah, dude, they probably just didn't want to bother looking for it to cancel it. Again, sometimes it really is just the easiest answer, the Occam's razor, which I feel like an idiot, but I really did not. I genuinely didn't realize that Authors of Pain are Occam and Razor. So I didn't even catch that, and then I finally saw it. The other day. I went, "Oh yeah, that's actually kind of brilliant," because they're supposed to be these brutes. So the whole deal is the simplest answer.
Ryback truly is like the Chuck Norris of memes now. He literally invented everything. But our original point with Enzo Amore, I mean, we're talking about a guy that broke his leg countering a wrist lock. He knocked himself out taking a simple bump. I've never been to wrestling school, and I feel like I could have taken that bump a whole lot better. But, hey, he's a rapper now. I mean, he raps like he wrestles, but what do you got to do when you got 0 dimes?
The comparison I like to make is if you actually, I don't remember exactly when it was. It was sometime within the year within that year. I remember seeing Bo Dallas take that exact bump and actually taking it from less distance. He was maybe a step off the ropes and someone threw him, and he did that slide out the exact same way Enzo did not hurt himself, because Bo was actually very talented. And he is one of his lack of use on TV is one of the great crimes of the last 10 years as far as professional wrestling goes, because if you ever saw him in NXT, I saw him more than once go out after the cameras went dark and do 15, 20 minutes of just improv with the audience. This is stuff that never aired, but he would just be talking to the audience and they'd be yelling back at him. He would do this whole thing where he'd go out and yell, tell them to leave. They'd boo him. He'd say, "I'm going to call campus security." He'd go off stage. He'd come back and be like, "Okay, campus." No, he said he was going to call police. He goes off stage. "Okay, the police aren't coming, but I informed campus security. You all have to leave." And they'd start yelling for him to leave, and he'd go, "No, you." Like I said, solid 15, 20 minutes.
Oh, jeez.
Same thing when he actually got removed from the building by security. A lot of people don't know this. When the security guards came in to take him, those were NXT guys who was running from them, and they were actually struggling to catch him.
Oh, jeez.
If you go back and watch that footage, he's actually blowing them up, and he finally had to slow down and stop so they could get him. And even if you listen, when they pick him up, he starts yelling, "They touched my bum! Someone touched my bum! I'm being kidnapped!" He's yelling and saying, again, he's a super entertaining guy. Anyone who ever saw him on a house show in NXT knows that. I saw him and Billy Gunn, again, do like 25 minutes show around Christmas, where the major theme of the match was dumping water on each other, just so Bo could do a spot on the outside where he dumps water all over himself. Whatever they wrestle, they go back in. He goes back out to that same spot later, slips on the water he spilled.
Oh,
it was brilliant stuff. But again, it's like he's very talented, so that very same maneuver for him is easy. But if you're a clod, well, you get a severe concussion.
And I'm sure growing up in the industry kind of helped as well, with his father being IRS, his brother being Bray Wyatt. Sorry to break kayfabe.
Well, you can't break kayfabe. It doesn't exist. Or rather, it's not relevant anymore. If wrestling is no longer a con, you can't really kayfabe anyone on it, because it's like there's nothing to. That's all. That's why I always find it funny when fans will even say that, almost bemoaning, "Oh, kayfabe is dead." No, it's just irrelevant now.
Exactly.
It doesn't have any relevance in the 21st century. Do you hear doctors complaining that we don't drill holes in the backs of people's skulls anymore to let out the evil spirits?
That's a great analogy, too.
Maybe that's why this world's so evil.
And that's truly one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on the show. There's quite a bit of dirt sheets that are out there, whether they're clickbait or people that think that they're journalists, that are fabricating these stories about you, saying that you're hard to work with, you're pain in the rear truly to deal with as well. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted you on the air, was to clear the air, because we really haven't heard anything. A large majority of my friends that have worked with you and know you personally, you're one of the most humble individuals that they've experienced. So we wanted you on here to kind of tell your side of the story.
I said that before. I was like, Meltzer is not a journalist. He has no objectivity. His goal is to get clicks and subscriptions. That's it. That is how he makes a living. Even someone said that the other day, that a friend of mine, they were like, Meltzer's just a journalist. I was like, he's not even a journalist, man. He's a guy with a fan letter that got popular, because that's what it was originally. It was just a fan newsletter. And funny story, actually, I wrestled ACH at MLW not too long ago. So a lot of letters being thrown at you right there. And he, after the match, he was so happy because he's like, "Oh my God, you didn't bump me 30 times in heat." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, why would I?" I was like, "You got another match tonight?" He's like, "Oh my God, everyone just tries to make me work. Everyone just beats the crap out of me whenever we have a match. You're the first person to, like, actually take care of me." It's like, yeah, again, I'm a professional. I know you've got to work again later, and I also know this match is for an angle. It's not for. This isn't, like, the match was supposed to be a 20-minute, tear the building down 5-star match. It was meant to be an angle match where we're setting up him and Tom Lawler later in the night. But again, some guys don't understand that, and he's very appreciative of the fact that I took care of him and worked with him and didn't try to go out there and just try to get all my stuff in for the sake of getting myself over. But that's also people who actually work with me, as I like to point out, in the last year, almost year and a half, a single negative thing has not been said about, which, again, none puts that together, though. It's the weirdest thing. People will swear up and down, he got into a ton of fights. It's like, even if you believe the one story, it's still one story. Just because you saw it repeated, as you said, it's clickbait on 30 different websites doesn't mean 30 different things happen. It's all still the same one thing that they're referring to.
They're all just kind of building off of that one story, and it's kind of like that old school game that you used to play in elementary school and middle school of, I think it was called
Telephone,
yeah.
Telephone, yeah.
You would start with one sentence, and you would go through the room, and you would see what the sentence was at the end of the game, and it was so fabricated or nowhere even close to what the original statement was. And that's kind of how I emphasize how I kind of look at the internet nowadays.
But again, the truth doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is getting that attention. That's
exactly
that's how they kind of play the game. And the reality of it is that was the biggest challenge going to the Indies. And to this day, I worked with C.W. Anderson not too long ago, and he said the same thing. He was like, "Man, I'd heard so many bad things about you. You're super cool." I was like, "Yeah." He immediately was contacting a promoter, and he said about using me, and the guy's reaction was, "I heard that guy was a jerk." And he's like, No, I've just worked with him. He's great."
I agree. That's one of the best ways to truly get your name out there is just through the individuals that you work with. Now, moving forward into your time in the independents, while you were in NXT, while you were in WWE, you were more notably a tag team specialist. What kind of challenges did you find going to independents, trying to book yourself as a singles wrestler, having the notoriety of being a tag team specialist?
Honestly, that was never an issue. The strange thing was no one ever really looked to try and book me as a tag guy. I've never really, even, with the exception of King of Trios, which is a tag tournament, obviously, I hadn't really done any tag stuff. At least not all that much. I think I did a little bit on MLW, and then that's pretty much been it. The funny thing is with tag team wrestling is that it's more expensive, to be perfectly blunt. You have to book two people, and a lot of the time when I get brought in, if a company's intent on using me long term, they generally want to get more of their money and are looking more for shall we say, a big ticket match. They want to put me with someone like a Matt Riddle or a Tom Lawler or a Daisuke Sakamoto. All guys I've gotten to wrestle in the last year, all phenomenal individuals.
Absolutely.
But the other side of it is if they just want me for a one shot, they usually want me in there to put over one of their talents, to work with them and sort of give them the match they need. I actually just worked with Kobe Durst not too long ago for freelance wrestling out of Chicago. Kobe's still very young, but he's very talented, and it was an opportunity for him to get to have a match with someone who's a bit, more notable than some of the talent he's worked with, and had someone with more experience. Yeah, and he really we got to have a really fun match. It's available on Powerbomb TV if you have an account there. But I think it's sort of what my job is. And actually, a little aside that was very funny. When I wrestled Riddle, and the promoter had me go over on him because he was putting his title on me the next day. Immediately, there were fans going off about how, I can't believe Simon Gotch, former WWE guy throwing his weight around, refusing to do jobs. And I was like, you do know the only reason I won was because he couldn't book Riddle for 2 days, right? And that he was going to put a belt on me the next day, so he figured he may as well give me a win before that. It wasn't. It was. The one thing I will absolutely toot my own horn about is I have never complained about or given issue with putting someone over, particularly on the indies. I have never assumed I'm winning. I figure very much if you're paying to bring me in, you're paying for make sure I make your guy look good, make sure I make your local guy have a quality match with a known individual that he can put on a DVD or he can put out there on YouTube and get attention for. That's why I'm there. if you're bringing me in with someone who you've invested time and money in, again, I wouldn't expect you to have me go over them. If that's what you want because you're going somewhere with it, cool. But for a one shot, that doesn't make any sense, and I wouldn't expect anyone to do that.
And that's the XWA Frontier Sports Championship title that you currently hold, correct?
Yes, their Frontier Sports title. And actually, a fun story about that is we did a non-title match where it was me and Karin Noir, who's their heavyweight champion. And Dan, the promoter, had asked, he's like, well, who should go over? And I remember thinking that we were like calling, we'll figure it out by calling it. We came up with a good finish, and it was him up. So I was like, yeah, he'll go over. It was as simple as that, because Tom, Karin Noir, is super talented. I've said more than once, if WWE does not sign him, that is a mistake and a half, because he's just he's amazing talent. He has so much personality. He has a 5-minute entrance, and as someone who doesn't like watching long entrances, I was enthralled the entire time. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This entrance is so spectacular. But that's just someone who doesn't like entrances. Like, to me, entrances are usually very boring. But Tom's was super entertaining and really interesting. The reason I put him over was because it was like, that's what makes sense for the match. We're calling the match this way. The finish would make the most sense for him to beat me. So I was like, we'll just do it that way.
Which is very humbling as well, especially in the world of professional wrestling. Everyone wants to be that top guy. So to be that individual that comes in that, like yourself, has that notoriety, that's saying, no, put him over. This is his time. I don't understand why people talk as much about you as they do, or put out all the negative that they do. I think it all comes down to our original point more than anything.
It's a job. It's just like anything else. We look at wins and losses in pro wrestling so seriously, but as I like to remind people, when I started in wrestling, I was very orthodox. I believed very much traditionally in what you're taught in wrestling school. And as I've gotten older, particularly when I had my 90-day no compete, and I was able to really think about how I felt with wrestling and really consider my opinions on it, I realized a lot of the stuff we believe is wrong, just straight up wrong. I disagree with it now. There was a period in time where I would never use the word fake to describe wrestling. I would get offended at people who did. And I remember, and one of the conclusions I came to is pro wrestling is guys in costumes pretending to fight. Like, why are we taking it so seriously that, like, we're getting angry if we lose a match? It's not real. I didn't really lose. I didn't really win. That's why I find it laughable when WWE tries to promote, like, the thing they do with the New Day. They're the longest reigning tag team champions of all time. Yeah, you know why? Because you booked them to be that. They didn't really win all those matches. It doesn't matter how long their title reign is, because their title reign purely means you had no other tag teams you wanted to put the belts on, or you figured it would be a good promotional thing to give them that sort of little nudge of attention. It's not like the Royal Rumble where if they're like, oh, he was in there for 74 minutes. Like, well, he really had to be in there for 74 minutes. You know, even if it's not a real fight, he really had to be out there working for 74 minutes. That's a long time. But with something like that, with like a record, like a streaks make no sense to me in wrestling for just that reason. But there even stuff where guys will put over, like, oh, you know what you should do if you want to put someone over big, have them win with one move real quick. The audience knows this isn't real. They know we're not really fighting. You can show Flair Steamboat to someone who's not a wrestling fan, and they might like it or they might hate it, but they're not going to think it's a real fight. And that's not a knock on those two guys. We have MMA now. We have a very easily accessible visual comparison to what a real fight looks like versus a pro wrestling match. And when the two don't line up and they know the MMA is real, they know that our stuff is not. The whole reason we put the word entertainment in the title WWE, they can say all they want, it's to give it a broader appeal. What they're saying is that so people know we're not pretending this is real. It's so people know that we are fully admitting this is an entertainment product. This is a TV show. This is not a real fight. That's why we do it. So many guys are still caught up in that idea that, oh, we got to convince them it's real. You could punch me in the face as hard as you can. My nose could explode. Blood could fly everywhere. And people would still say that's a fake wrestling punch because they're aware that it's not real. So if they see something real, they assume it's not real. I've seen Mike Seidel, Matt Seidel's older brother, almost break his neck doing a shooting star press, like legit, like Hayabusa style, land on his forehead in a bridge.
Ooh. God.
He fortunately, thanks to the yoga, he wasn't that badly hurt. He was badly hurt, but he wasn't permanently injured.
I'm knocking on the table for that one.
Yeah. But this was like 8 years ago at this point. But there were people in the audience who weren't sure if it was real or not. They were asking if it was part of the show.
Oh, jeez.
Wow.
Yeah, he climbed up the top rope just to fall on his head. That's part of the show.
But again, that's what I mean, is that even when they see something real, they don't believe it. So we create this wall when we take those stances, and moreover, as professionals, winning and losing doesn't matter. It really shouldn't anyway. having a good match should matter. Having an entertaining match that intrigues people, that gains emotional investment is what should matter. So if you tell me, hey, you're going 30 seconds, that I'm not happy with. I'd rather lose in 15 minutes than go over in 30 seconds, because at least in 15 minutes I can give the audience a reason to care about me. But in 30 seconds, I win, so what? Like, it doesn't matter. It's a meaningless victory because they know it's not real. So they don't think, oh, wow, he's really good. He won in 30 seconds. They think, oh, that was boring. There's a lot of those archaic ideologies that are still preached and still believed by people in the industry. And as long as we continue to feed into them and believe in them and really sort of reinforce them, we can't as an industry evolve or expand. I made the point, I was talking to some guys over the weekend, and we were talking about the whole killing the business thing, and one of the points I make is, you know, it really kills the business, and it's not a knock on him as a person, but Kamala kills the business, because you had a black man on national television, getting savage, hailing from the dark continent. And if you are not a wrestling fan and you see that, your first reaction is, wow, every horrible, negative, derogatory thing I've ever thought about pro wrestling, that it's basically lowbrow, racist, sexist, homophobic entertainment for morons, is 100% true. And you will turn it off. You'll turn off the product and you will never watch it again. And you will have a horrific reaction to anyone who tells you they like wrestling. That actually damages the business. That prevents people from becoming fans. If you show someone the Kenny Omega wrestling a blow-up doll, they'll like it or they won't. But again, they'll at least be interested in what they're seeing because it's insane. Sometimes you need to make stuff accessible for people to be willing to watch it. Wrestling, unfortunately, for so long has made it inaccessible for people. We make it not a good thing to watch. We make people ashamed to be pro wrestling. You know, William Regal has said that he himself is sometimes ashamed to admit he's a pro wrestler because of the actions of other wrestlers. But I think, moreover, wrestling fans deal with that degree of shame over the fact that what they like isn't always that good. I think they just did the thing on Monday with what was it? Bobby Lashley's sisters.
It was so awful.
That one in the middle was pretty cute. I'm not gonna lie, with the mustache.
You would say that. You would.
But again, it's, you see something like that, or even if we want to go back farther, the Katie Vick, or the what was another good one? Actually, in that same angle, Kane, when they were doing the whole thing with, because they did it with Kane and Vince, Vince pulling stuff out of JR's ass.
Oh, jeez. Or like McMahon's mystery son, or Mae Young giving birth to a hand.
Yeah, it's a cheap laugh. Move on. They always, when it's stuff like that, it always goes on unbearably long. It's like it's almost, I feel sometimes Vince is kind of like Andy Kaufman. Like, the real joke for him is making people watch stuff he knows isn't funny.
That is a sadistic bastard right there.
His whole deal is, no, I'm going to put something out there knowing it's bad, and I'm going to laugh because I know everyone is squirming in their seat and uncomfortable and hating it. And it's funny to me because I got all of them. They're all there. They already paid. They came here to see, an entertaining pro wrestling show, and they're getting this.
Bobby Lashley's sisters with mustaches, or It's Your Life Rock. I mean, we could go.
Bailey, This Is Your Life, isn't that what it was?
Oh my God, it was
that was
so
a bad one.
The list goes
This
on.
Is Your Life with The Rock. At least was a little funny. It at least had moments. At least got good ratings. Because if nothing else, The Rock has genuine charisma. I mean, I tend to make that point that if you really look, there's pro wrestling charisma and there's genuine charisma, and they're not the same thing. Because you'll see there are guys who try to translate into other mediums, into TV, into movies, who fail, who were very popular in pro wrestling. But The Rock is an example of someone who left pro wrestling, went to film, and he's been extremely popular ever since. His popularity's never waned.
No,
I mean, and if anything, he's more popular now than he's ever been.
So some exciting stuff so far, and that's only part 1 of 2 of our interview with Simon Gotch. But let's keep things moving and jump into the 3 count. Let's go.
All right, so we're back with another weekly 3 count. If you're just listening for the first time, the way this works, we go through the 3 top stories trending right now in the world of independent and professional wrestling, the top trending stories. So let's get going right now. Let's go into number 1. Number 1. So, I don't know if you saw this on Twitter just yesterday. Kenny Omega throwing some massive shade at WWE. Did you see this post?
I did.
Oh, yeah. It was actually quite humorous, man. Someone had posted a picture of the SmackDown Shut Your Mouth, what was it, like a PS1 or PS2 video game?
That game was sweet.
Oh, it was. It was at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, the graphics were crap, but I mean, I played that for hours on end. Well, on the cover, it had such superstars as Triple H. It had Brock Lesnar, Kurt Angle, among a few others. And someone had tagged Kenny Omega in it. And he replied back with, is that next month's pay-per-view poster? Oh, yeah. So definitely some shade. A lot of people not happy about it. But, I mean, he's Kenny Omega. What are they really going to do?
I mean, didn't he just fight Jericho?
He just fought Jericho. He's one of the top independent wrestlers in the world. I mean, that alone is probably one of the reasons that's keeping him out of WWE. If he does get there, that's going to be some massive shade beforehand. But, I mean, I think it was playful. I think he's friends with a large majority of individuals that are on the WWE roster right now. Do you think they kind of took offense to that?
No, I mean, I think like you said, it's just all in good fun. And that's the way that the wrestling industry is. They like to do ruses and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, just ribbing each other.
Ribbing each other all the time. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it was just playful banter, but we'll see what escalates from there.
Yeah.
Number 2. All right, so big rumor coming out. I don't know how I feel about this.
I think this is Trump big. What do you think?
Huge. I think number 3 is huge, but this is like huge, like kind of a small huge, but big rumor mill. There's it's rumored that they're almost to the signing table at this point. Big rumor going around that SmackDown is going to be going to Fox. The Fox network signing a huge contract starting fall of 2019 that's going to see SmackDown not only go from Tuesday nights to Friday nights, but there's also a rumor that it's actually going to go to a 3-hour show. Now, I don't know how I feel about this. I remember when SmackDown was on Friday nights.
Oh, you do? Because I didn't ever watch it. So.
I didn't either.
DVR.
I said I remembered it. I never said I watched it. I mean, I'm doing other stuff on Friday nights. Even now, I'm doing other things on Friday nights.
Oh, you mean like working?
Like working. I'm partying.
Yeah.
I mean, if I do party, I'm recovering for the next 4 days.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think it's a good idea in retrospect. On paper, it's a great idea. Bringing Fox into it, kind of building it up as the NFL or MLB, like Friday Night Wrestling, kind of similar to like Sunday Night Football or Sunday Night Baseball, things along that nature. And I think that that's the outcome that they're really hoping for. But do you think it's going to be a good move for WWE to do that?
Well, a few things that we need to first say is, if they do this Friday night switch, that's going to change up their whole TV scheduling, because it's not going to go Sunday, Monday, Tuesday on a pay-per-view. Now you're going to have Friday, Sunday, Monday instead of the other way around. So you're going to have to change everything unless you're going to do that Tuesday show, which people are used to after a pay-per-view for Tuesday Night SmackDown. And second, are they going to record it on Tuesday and just have it pre-recorded like they did before?
I don't think they are. I think what they'll probably do, they'll definitely switch their schedule around. I think I see it a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then maybe a Tuesday house show. Maybe. I'm not sure. With all the things that they're working with, there's the talks of the UK tournament, getting its own show, obviously 205 Live as well. If they go to this 3-hour show, I think it's the end of 205 Live. I don't see anyone really sticking around for 4 hours of content. I know that that's already a big concern with pay-per-views that are going over that time period. But, I mean, we'll just have to wait and see, I guess. I think we need a little bit more information, but off of the information we have right now, I'm excited, but I'm also cautiously optimistic.
Well, and one other thing I want to take into consideration is you're going to have Fox promoting NBC shows on their station and vice versa.
I mean, we'll have to wait and see. Number 3. Okay, so I don't know if you saw this story or not, but this is why I didn't want to use the huge Donald Trump huge news earlier today. Did you hear about this or no?
Bits and pieces, but I didn't know whether it was true or not.
I'm still at that same point where I don't know if I should believe it or not. If it is true, it's going to be huge. But there is a rumor going around that at the All In press conference, CM Punk was spotted backstage. Here's my question for you. Is CM Punk all in?
I hope to God he's all in, because my favorite wrestler from that era is CM Punk. And I just always hope when they do Chicago shows he's going to come out, because they're always chanting it. I know he's not, but the little man inside of me, the kid
You have a
inside
little
of
man
me.
inside of you?
Yeah, well, no.
You have a little kid?
That's a little weird. I have a little kid inside of me, definitely. I'm just a
That's
little kid
really
trapped
weird.
in a man's body.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. that.
Yeah.
Thank you. There's always good to be clarification there.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't control the age that's on your ID, but you can be as young as you want
Yeah.
for
I
as
don't
long
have
as you
like
want.
a pygmy trapped inside of me. or
Okay, let's
anything.
move on from that point. But I'm actually quite excited about it. I don't know how I truly feel about it, if it is truth or just overall rumor. But if it is, I mean, it's great for the wrestling industry, especially with his experience and his history with the Ring of Honor product. It's where he made his name before coming to WWE, where he started in the ECW brand. But if he is all in, I am all in for that as well. I mean, you just elevated that show even more, and I think that's one of the things that kind of sparked interest and why it sold out as quickly as it did. I mean, this is 2 weeks in a row right now where All In is the number one topic.
Yeah.
And people are still talking about it, and it's sold out. I mean, if tickets go on sale from scalpers, how much do you think they're going to go for? Just with that rumor or that possibility. Do you think it's going to kind of overshadow the rest of the show if people are kind of sitting there thinking, when's CM Punk coming out?
Not with this show. There's
No.
so many great matches.
I completely
and
agree.
I just want to say that I think that to show that we are all in, that we should work diligently the next couple weeks to try and get one of the people from this show to be a guest on our show.
We might have that. It might be a possibility. So if you're listening, stick around. We might have a all-in guest. But that's the weekly 3 count. So that's only part 1 of 2. I mean, it's only a matter of time before part 2 drops, but I mean, already some outstanding stuff so far.
Yeah, I mean, you got to admit that guy's a genius, and
Absolutely.
just the way that he talks about the sport and the behind the scenes and everything else.
Just the psychology behind it too. I mean, it doesn't just stop with the entertainment, just the way that he's putting individuals over and the stories that he has. I mean, we've only touched ground level at this point with all of his stories. So definitely want you guys to check back. We have part 2 dropping soon, but we have a very exciting guest next week. Be sure to follow us on Twitter. We are the Dark Match PC on Twitter. Follow us on Instagram, the Dark Match Podcast. If you have any questions, all of our links are at the bottom. But that's going to do it here today for the Dark Match Podcast. We'll be back with a new episode dropping soon. Peace.
Boom.